Maysak was the second typhoon to slam northeastern China and the Korean Peninsula in the past 10 days. Last week, Typhoon Bavi flooded roads and vehicles in China's Liaoning Province along the coast on August 27th. Some regions in Heilongjiang, Jilin, and Inner Mongolia were also affected. The powerful typhoon hit Heilongjiang Province on September 3rd, bringing strong winds and heavy rains, and then moved further south to Jilin Province. It is very rare for a typhoon to strike China's northeastern regions. Bavi was the first typhoon that slammed Liaoning Province since 1964. Compared with Liaoning, which has a partial coastline, Heilongjiang and Jilin are further away from the open sea. It is therefore even more unusual for a typhoon to hit these two provinces directly.
这9号台风有10号台风，这把我们东北给整成啥样了？你瞅瞅，你瞅瞅，
下就完蛋，
完了，
来下就完蛋，
看看，洪水泛滥了。
一会儿上下边就都完蛋了。
好好的。
In Heilongjiang city of Heilongjiang, many families were notified to evacuate as the raging floods washed away 2 bridges, and the Heilang River that runs through the city's Changting town was about to overflow.
这是黑龙江省海林市福兴镇6班村，这个大桥已经被冲没了，把桥给冲没了。看这水多大，看这个桥，看这水田地已经变成了 汪洋大海，老百姓种地太难了。8点，3家子村，这是大河水要涨水，然后准备撤离，我就来救援来了。你前面那个车我过不去，那小车我过不去，不够宽，第一个车。这3家子村现在是9点40，准备撤离，人员陆续来了。 预计胡峰凌晨3点钟能到这里，现在开始，老百姓开始撤离了啊。
In Jilin City, the second largest city of Jilin Province, residents who live on the first floor near the Songhua River were ordered to evacuate. Maysak moved further south to Jilin Province around 1:40 p.m. The strong winds that came along with Maysak stripped off roofs and toppled trees along its path.
一是往大千城走的这个路上，一棵树把正在这个行驶的一辆车给砸了。
这就是对面的楼，哎呀妈呀，都砸到我家窗户过来了。对面的楼，顶楼的那个，
木耳地全冲了，水太大了。
看看这地找的啊，看看这地，完了，今年的年头彻底完了。我家房后的地全部趴过，没有一家剩下的站杆啊。
老铁们，你们看一看啊，这是我们家这个吉林长春这边啊，昨晚上一看台风来了之后啊，就这样了啊，农民苦，农民累啊，农民忙了一春又一夏呀。 最后到了结果是这样，真心寒呐，全倒了，全都倒了，看看，没剩下。这边白忙了一年，哎，真的不容易啊，老百姓啊，真不容易啊。
朋友们，大家好，今天是9月4号。 黑龙江省啊，受到美沙克台风的袭击啊，现在科山地区也受到严重的影响。各位老铁，看看这苞米，科山县的苞米已经全部差不多全倒伏了。各位老铁上地看看，这个玉米倒伏分时期，如果这个8节气倒伏呢，它可以站立；这个熊穗成熟以后啊，倒伏以后自己是站不起来的，互相排挤，互相挤压。各位老铁，这边台风啊！ 不但给黑龙江以及给吉林、辽宁都造成了农业经济方面严重的损失。希望各位老铁呀，赶快进行加强田间管理，避免你造成
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently announced restrictions on Chinese diplomats who will need approval from the U.S. to visit university campuses, meet with local government officials, and host any cultural events. Experts believe that this is an ideological counterattack from the U.S. against the CCP. On September 2nd, the Secretary of State announced that the Department of State will now require senior PRC diplomats in the United States to receive approval to visit U.S. university campuses and to meet with local government officials. Cultural events with an audience larger than 50 people hosted by the PRC embassy and consular posts outside of mission properties will also require Department of State approval. Pompeo also said that the Department of State will also take action to help ensure that all official PRC embassy and consular social media accounts are properly identified as PRC government accounts.
For years, the Chinese Communist Party has imposed significant barriers on American diplomats working inside the PRC.
Pompeo said that PRC authorities implement a system of opaque approval processes designed to prevent American diplomats from conducting regular business and connecting with the Chinese people. The attempts from U.S. diplomats to host cultural events, secure official meetings, and visit university campuses are regularly obstructed. Pompeo further explained that the reason why the U.S. demanded that all official PRC embassy and consular social media accounts be properly identified as PRC government accounts is because the U.S. embassy is denied access to PRC social media and because Chinese citizens are blocked from using social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook. U.S.-based commentator on current issues Lan Shu believes that this change of U.S. foreign policy is a natural process of returning to an ideological struggle after resolving trade inequalities.
Trade conflicts are just superficial. The most fundamental conflict is the clash of two ideologies from both sides. At the same time when they are resolving these trade conflicts, the ideological clash slowly and gradually involves academia, politics, and so on. The issue of ideology eventually involves all aspects and comes up to the surface. This process is happening extremely fast, especially this year after the CCP covered up the epidemic and caused a worldwide catastrophe. This has directly accelerated the understanding of the evil nature of the CCP in the West.
Pompeo also said that these new requirements on PRC diplomats are a direct response to the excessive restraints already placed on our diplomats by the PRC. In the past decades, the U.S. government has been sacrificing economic interests when trading economically with China in the hopes that China would move away from authoritarianism and become a democratic country. Chinese-Canadian author Sheng Xue believes that the U.S. has demonstrated its goodwill toward China over the past few decades by hoping that China would transition into a normal society as it integrates with the world, but this goodwill was exploited.
This exact policy is precisely the most important mistake that has enabled the CCP to brag in the world today in terms of economy and technology, and to infiltrate, influence, and bribe democratic countries on a large scale. After seeing the true face of the CCP, every sanction imposed and measure taken by the U.S. is a punishment and blow to the CCP.
Pompeo also revealed that the next step taken by the U.S. will be to implement measures to prevent U.S. universities from CCP's threats. On September 1st, Pompeo indicated in an interview with Fox News that hopefully all Confucius Institutes will be removed from the U.S. by the end of the year.
I think that everyone's coming to see the risk associated with them and the recruitment of spies and collaborators inside of those institutions. I think these institutions can see that, and I'm hopeful we will get them all closed out before the end of this year.
Last month, the U.S. labeled all Confucius Institutes as foreign missions. All Confucius Institutes are now required to provide the State Department lists of personnel and other relevant information. Just last week, the National Association of Scholars announced that there are 67 Confucius Institutes remaining in the U.S. 5 academic institutions, including the Community College of Denver, University of Oklahoma, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, Rutgers University, and Emory University will close their Confucius Institutes at the end of the year. Recently, the University of North Texas expelled 15 China-funded visiting scholars and students. In May this year, President Trump issued an order banning Chinese nationals with ties to the Chinese military from entering U.S. universities on student and scholar visas to pursue graduate studies or conduct postdoctoral research. Sheng Xue said that she fully supports the new U.S. policy because the CCP, as a terrorist state, is too evil to be treated as a normal regime and has gone below the bottom line of humanity. Lan Shu believes that the U.S. is now facing a vicious security threat from the CCP, and that this ideological counterattack is an essential element to keep America safe.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited 5 European countries from August 25th to September 1st. Protests against treatment of Hong Kongers and Uyghurs accompanied his continental visit. The Italian Prime Minister refused to meet Wang at the first stop in Italy. Sang Pu, a current affairs commentator in Taiwan, believes that Europe is awakening and is standing in line with the United States against the Chinese regime's tyranny.
Prime Minister of Italy Conte refused to meet Wang Yi, only communicating with him over the phone. Dutch Foreign Minister Brock mentioned bluntly the problems in Xinjiang, the repression of Uyghurs, and the freedom of Hong Kong. After talking about the Arctic Circle Joint Plan in Oslo, Norway, Wang Yi said that COVID-19 did not come from China and threatened the Norwegian authorities not to award the Nobel Peace Prize to protesters in Hong Kong. Norwegian politicians found this unacceptable. France also announced that although Huawei's 5G will not be banned, it is recommended to use European Ericsson or Nokia's 5G system. In other words, just like the Canadians, the French just don't say anything while keeping Huawei or Chinese companies out of the door.
Sang Pu believes that the Czech Senate President Milos Vystrčil's visit to Taiwan has taken the first step for Europe to reject the Chinese Communist Party.
This is to tell everyone that the Czech Republic has become sharp. Not everyone is like the pro-CCP President Zeman. 96% of the entire Czech Senate are anti-CCP, supporting Taiwan and their visits. Vystrčil also made it very clear that visiting Taiwan is not anti-China. He said that the Czech Republic has its own interpretation of the One China policy, hoping the Czech Republic can be equal and mutually beneficial with China and Taiwan.
Sang believes the CCP's countermeasures are quite limited, and it will be a dead end if it fights with Europe.
There may be only one country left in Europe that stands with the CCP desperately, that is Serbia. Except for Serbia, I think other countries are backing away, meaning they are awakening and leaving the nightmare of the CCP. If the CCP continues to suppress the interests of these countries through people, money, property, business, and trade, I think there will only be one result. The CCP's demise will continue to accelerate.
A baby boy who was born prematurely had a very weak heartbeat upon birth, but the doctors told the parents that their newborn had died. The baby was wrapped up in a plastic bag and handed over to his parents. In a strange twist of fate, the baby suddenly started to cry when his father, Mr. Shu, was about to bury him. Although the baby turned out to be alive, he developed cerebral palsy due to the lack of oxygen. The incident occurred in September last year, and so far, the authorities at the First People's Hospital in Shanqiu City, Henan Province, have refused to admit that the doctors involved are responsible for the tragedy. Mr. Shu posted a video of himself quarreling with the hospital staff. The video went viral, and Chinese netizens were shocked when they learned that some doctors in today's China could bear to handle human lives in such a negligent manner.
你说在家你想到这死亡团上自行暴走了啊！你给他救能找这个孩子跑出来是个活的，我的主人，告诉人出生的孩子是死亡的，你告诉人出生的孩子是个活的吗？告诉人活的吗？真是当你告诉人出生的孩子。